Okay, I've just walked up out of a pretty little village in Oxfordshire, West Oxfordshire. I want you to have a look at the name of the village. Have a look at this sign just here. Ascot under Wychwood. That tells me we should be under or beneath something to do with Wychwood. But there's nothing local here whatsoever. There's a Wychwood forest, which is about 3.5 miles in that direction, but nothing else. This gets worse. Come and take a look at this. So this is, as the sign reads, Shipton under Wychwood. We have the same problem. We're maybe 1.5 miles further on from Ascot under Wychwood, and yet again we're about 4.5 miles now away from the forest of Wychwood. What exactly is going on here? One more to show you. And finally, Milton under Wychwood, 0.5 mile in that direction as the sign up there suggests. Now, as you probably predicted, we're around about 5.5 miles away now from Wychwood Forest, way over in that direction. So what exactly is going on here? Why are all the settlements along here named under Wychwood, when in fact we're absolutely miles away from Wychwood itself? Welcome to the story of the UK's largest lost forest. And what we need to do now is go and find Sam, who's going to help us unravel today's mystery. Our first clue, in fact one that I discovered on another project a year ago, is maybe 6 miles south of these villages. I happened across an old chapel in an abandoned medieval village near Burford. In fact, the chapel, St Oswald's, built in the 1200s, an early Gothic church, and it's full of hugely important aspects of history. A painting of some kings from 1340, a Roman mosaic in the corner was found and now is in Cirencester Museum. And this told us the chapel was likely built on top of a Roman villa. But back outside of the clue, you see in that direction around 6 or 7 miles we now have Wychwood Forest, and the village here, now long since abandoned, is often mentioned in conjunction with Woodford and its past. The Board of Agriculture here described this part of the forest as a place of pilferers, poachers and deer stealers alike. So we have a forest that stretches at least all the way down to here at Woodford. That's huge. So how do we find out exactly how big this place was? It turns out if we scratch the surface, well, this isn't unique. We can almost map the forest from the history of the villages in the area. Hayley is another great example, described as the ancient Wychwood forest surrounded the village of Hayley. Okay, I think I found Sam. So, and a tumuli. And Sam said, meet by the tumuli, and here we are. This is Sam from Sam Walks a Lot. Hello Sam, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent.
We made it.
We made it. And that looks like a tumuli, right?
It does.
We're going to come back to that later in this video. If you want to go and see some more specifics about this forest, some of the not so gruesome but ghostly tales.
Oh, ghosts for sure.
You need to go and subscribe to Sam's channel. I'll put the link in the description below. In the meantime, on with the history. So let's head back to one of the earliest sources we have for Wychwood and its existence, which is the Domesday Book. Now the Domesday Book mentions Wychwood in its own right, and the information we can gather from that and glean from that is absolutely staggering. A royal forest consisting of 182 square miles. 182 square miles, that's something like 13 by 13 miles here in the UK. That is huge. Okay, so let's give all of this landscape some context. You see, because before the Domesday Book with the Normans, before the Saxons, before the Romans, before the Iron Age tribes, this land was populated. We have countless long barrows within the forest now, and we also have a number of Bronze Age barrows too. So on those Bronze Age barrows, we've been looking now for maybe half an hour. We assume Bronze Age barrows, tumuli it states, so we assume we're looking for sort of a round mound of some description. Now on the map it says it's just there. Had we not seen it on the map, we wouldn't have seen that in a million years. We were looking at some lumps and bumps. Sam, you saw one, where is it? Yeah, through there.
Yeah.
That looks crystal clear, so maybe there's more than one here, maybe there's quite a few, because there's earthworks everywhere. But if we spin the camera around, that there is the tumuli that the map mentions. It's only about 2 or 3 feet high above from where we're standing now. doesn't stand out much. The landscape here is littered with Bronze Age and Neolithic barrows of various shapes and sizes, inside and outside of the now forest as it stands today. And then we have the Romans. Villas are scattered here, especially on the south side. And why? Well, because we have Akerman Street sliding horizontally across the county here. But let's move forward just a couple of hundred years, because we may get a clue of the meaning of the name at this point. So we're inside a very early Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Which. According to an Anglo-Saxon charter, it was found or formed around about 577 AD. Within about 50 years of that date became a client kingdom of Mercia. So we're in that territory right now. Really disappointingly, we're walking through the middle of this forest. We're on a pathway, obviously, and we've got like a 6 or 7 foot high fence surrounding us on both sides. It's quite an extreme way to keep people out of a forest. A little bit disappointing, but we'll see what else we can find as time goes on. Whatever the etymology for which, well, the word still remains with us today in many places around here. In Wychwood in Warwickshire, Winchenford, Wychbury Hill, Droitwich in Worcestershire, and of course we have here in Wychwood in Oxfordshire. Fantastic. Now, despite the fact that we seem to be in an incredibly private area today in terms of access to the land, well, we are still treated with a few gorgeous sights. The little holloway there down, and perhaps the other side of that valley too. Despite the fences, we have been treated to a few nice sights today. So we have this forest dating back probably to Saxon times, if not certainly Norman. So what exactly went wrong? How did we go from 182 square miles to perhaps just about 5 or 6 square miles? So we now know that in 1086 we have a royal forest. Now that didn't always mean forest in the sense of the word of trees, it was seen instead as an area outside of the law. So it would have been segregated for hunting, forest. So the 1200s saw Wychwood Forest probably at its largest swathe of land that it ever had and ever will be. It was reputed to stretch from Tainton to Woodstock, Chipping Norton in the north to Northmoor in the south. That is absolutely monumental, and perhaps that even is larger than the 182 square miles that we talked about earlier. But that was all about to change, and by 1300 we start to see its demise. Seemingly no longer a king's hunting ground, it's split into 3, Woodstock, Cornbury and Witney. You see, between then and 1700 the history is not well documented. We know that at some point Cornbury district of the forest is now in private hands, and the Woodstock part was given to the crown by the Duke of Marlborough. Since that point it has remained in that family. That family is known as the Blenheim family. But what about the rest? It's not the first time we've looked into the history of a place and seen a change in the landscape and a change in the law purely owing to shipbuilding. That's what happened in 1778. The Navy procured 500 trees from this very forest. We have an Anglo-French war between 1778 and 1783, all while Britain was fighting the American War of Independence, so resources were crucial. They need decent quality wood, and that was high on the agenda, and here at Wychwood we have that wood. It was our intention today to show you all sorts of quirky bits and pieces, an old well, some long barrows, you name it, throughout the forest, but so much of this is fenced off and marked as private, which is a real shame because there's a lot of history here to show you, but such is the way. Unfortunately, sometimes trees were being chopped here back in the 1780s for the Navy, but as time went on, cartload and cartload were being produced, but it wasn't enough to meet that demand of and from the Navy. There's a number of different reasons for this. They said that the quality of the oaks here wasn't good enough, and of course they blamed a lot of the locals for stealing a lot of the wood and trees here for firewood. All in all, Wychwood supplied just 173 good quality oaks. By 1859, it seemed the failing forest was in for more bad news. A further 2,000 acres across was cleared for farmland, housing and new infrastructure. By 1867, we have pretty much exactly where we are now. Around 1,700 acres remained via enclosures. The 182 square mile forest we saw in the 1200s has now gone to around 5 square miles today. So this has been the story of Wychwood, one of the UK's, or if not the UK's largest lost forest. As if you want to go for a bit of a deeper dive and some of the weird and wonderful bits and pieces around here, check out Sam's channel. We'll put that in the link below. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.